So it says we're live. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Fearless Flight Live, our weekly show that we do on Facebook every Tuesday night, coming to you from the beautiful downtown studios of Ron's house here. His house that's coming back together after a year and a half following water damage. With me tonight, we got Diane. She's got her own remodeling going on, so she's a pleasant surprise. And of course, Eric is over there holding up the fort. And we've got a couple of guests tonight that we're going to share our experience with that I flew with over the weekend. So should be a great time. Want to remind you, of course, that Fearless Flight is the place to go for your shopping needs. No, for your Fearless Flight needs. And am I sharing my screen now?
Yes, you are.
Good. So we do this every week, and we have special crew editions, usually on the same week that we have the monthly group coaching webinar. They give me a break to they being the rest of the crew, Eric and Diane and Dieter, and talk about pretty much just airplane stuff, which people find interesting. So, and it gives me a little bit break to prepare for the webinar on Thursdays. But it is a place for anybody to show up if you have issues with flying, if you know somebody, or if you just like to keep tabs on the airline industry itself and some of the things that go on out there. This is our Fearless Flight Birds of a Feather Facebook group. And we encourage you to join that if you haven't. We should be pushing 1,700 or 1,800 maybe. I think we passed 1,700. It's a great place for people to meet, to join up, and to find some support, and also to get questions answered. And we use it for the content for our weekly shows and articles that we do. Tonight's show, we're going to talk about the 301 graduation flight over the weekend that I did. I went to Burbank and we flew to Sacramento and back. We got two of the people that flew with us over the weekend, flew with me over the weekend. And we'll highlight the upcoming November live monthly group coaching webinar that'll be on November 21st, I believe. And we do have a Clear for Takeoff 301 graduation flight coming up in Phoenix here on November 9th. That's just a little over a week and a half coming up. So if you haven't, you can go over there. The fares are up around $178, I think. It's getting into the pricey range because we're getting close to the flight there. But anyway, so let me pause or stop the share for a minute. I'll invite Tom and Grace to join me here, and we'll just talk about how much fun we had over the weekend. So
quick shout out to Stephanie and Tracy. Great to see you on the show watching.
Okay, so let me start with you, Grace. So just quickly a little bit about your history and how you got hooked up with me and this operation here.
Yes, thank you, Ron. My name is Grace, and I have flown a lot over the years, but I was always a little bit nervous. Strangely enough, I was more nervous in the big planes than I was in the little single engines.
And was it you have the light airplane experience, right? Was it your husband that's a pilot and flies in the, yeah. And so you've flown quite a bit in a light airplane, in a little airplane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I flew a lot and just kind of, white knuckled it. And then I developed a more gripping fear.
Yeah.
And stopped all but really short flights, like 45-minute flights I could do.
Okay. And about how long ago was that? About how long ago was that when that happened and you continue to fly? I know, I remember that. And could you associate with any particular event in your life?
I associated it with the death of my mother 14 years ago.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah.
And so for 20 years or more, the longest flight I ever did was maybe 2 hours.
Okay.
But then my mother-in-law died this past summer, and we needed to fly to Chicago from Los Angeles, which is about 4 hours, a little less. And I knew I had to do it.
Yeah.
And so I called Ron. I did one of the coaching calls. I listened to a lot of the audios and did the exercises. And I just sort of turned a corner at one point. I was like, okay, I know I can do this. It's pretty amazing.
And you should tell everybody a little bit about the amazing. So what was it like to get to leading up to Saturday, and what was it like when you got on the plane?
So this Saturday was, because it's a short flight, Burbank to Sacramento, and I knew Captain Ron would be there, and he could, if the pilots had a problem, he could run up there and save the day.
And despite our prayers, those guys, everybody made it. Nobody failed us. And I was grossly disappointed because I was hoping to be, have my own version of Sully, but it never pans out. Those guys are too healthy. So
Yeah, they did well.
yeah,
Guys and gals.
yeah.
We had at least one female pilot or
Yeah,
co-pilot.
we did on the way up to Sacramento, and we had a couple of meals. And keep talking. I'm gonna share the pictures here just to give everybody a little bit of a feel for what went on with the group there. And I'm gonna get back to
our flight attendant on the way up, Michelle, was very, very helpful, and
she was amazing. She was
gave
amazing.
us
Yeah.
gifts. We got crowns and stickers and wings. I got my wings on my phone here.
And she had a birthday. It was actually her birthday. And
Right.
this is everybody, somebody, one of the other flight attendants, of course, ratted her out. And then that led to a happy birthday thing. And she played right along there. She said, a little louder, please. But and I had flown with Michelle, I think a year ago when I did the flight. It might have been last spring. And when she found out, I mean, she just is all in, and she couldn't do enough for us in the group, and just a great sport. Southwest used to do that a lot more, but they become a little bit more reserved with all the since the pandemic.
Yeah, the jokes about ejector seats and stuff.
Yeah. And here's too much of my mug, but here's Trey. Trey couldn't make it tonight, but Trey came back to support the group and to just beef up his own skills. And then here's they had these look like Burger King caps here, but they're Southwest, and Michelle was the prime mover in getting that there. And then we had our little certificate ceremony at the end. Tanya over here was another one. I have flown with Tanya privately, and she came out and she had a real breakthrough. She's actually with family tonight. They had a previous engagement, but she had a real breakthrough as well. And it just, I mean, she was in tears when he came to the gate. I got it on video, and I'm going to make a little video for the group, and you may see it on our website eventually. But she just felt like this was totally different. It's the thing she's been working for a long time. Like you, Grace, she had flown. She was a flight attendant, when she first started, and then all of a sudden she had a bad experience, and it just went south from there. This is the last flight when we returned from Sacramento to Burbank. This was our captain coming back there, and we had just great crew members. They were just really warm and friendly, and couldn't do enough for us over the flight there. So let me hang in there, Grace. I'm going to bring Tom in. Tom has his own story, and
Ron, before we get there, there's a question for Grace. Grace, what's your, it must be somebody who's connected with us, because the question is, what was your number one trigger? Like what about flying triggers you? Is it turbulence? Is it claustrophobia? Is it what is your number one trigger? That's it.
I don't like turbulence.
Mhm.
But even before that, for many years, just even thinking about booking a flight and
Mhm.
then booking the flight created anxiety. And then as I got closer and closer to the date, I would just, it was debilitating anxiety. I told Ron I would be like, okay, I have to get my house clean so that when they come in after the crash, you know, they'll know that I was, you know,
Yeah,
they'll know.
I got to ferret you out of that because that was when we did the coaching and stuff. That was some of the funniest things
Yeah,
that we did.
the dust bunnies, you know.
Yeah, yeah, the dust bunnies. So tell that story when we were doing the coaching session. You were talking about the things that would come into your mind, and I'm sure there are many people out there that can identify with that. I mean, that's the Midwest when I grew up. You know, my mom was always afraid. There's always a thing. If you're a man, you're always supposed to leave with clean underwear in case you have to end up in the emergency room. And for my mom, it was always got to make sure the house is suitable for when we leave or something like that. So go ahead. It was just cute when
you made it funny too, because you were telling Ron was teaching me about doing little place cards,
yeah.
little cards that when a thought comes into your head, you sort of write a response
Yeah, yeah.
to it as if you're, you're acknowledging the thought and then sort of writing it down, putting it aside. I think that's the concept.
Yep. Well, and then you took it to another level because I think you actually put place cards up and said if you explained if you find a dust bunny, basically it's on you. I did my best, or I don't remember exactly, but
this one's keeping me company. Don't judge.
exactly. And so you had this, and again, the thing that I think what you're really doing, what's relevant is you're actually taking it out of the first person and putting it into the third person. You're detaching emotionally from the whole notion. It just happens to be that the thing that you could identify with was fear of leaving your house with dust bunnies that they would find if you died. I mean, obviously all of us, it's funny to worry about somebody, what they think about us after we're gone, but we do that. That's so normal. And to me, it was just a great opportunity for you to do an intervention on yourself and just make a joke out of it. And it was entertaining for me because you would send me these, you just keep sending me these things, and I had a hoot. And I think we did a custom visualization too, didn't we?
Yes.
Yeah, out of those. So we put the dust bunnies in the visualization, and I don't know how that is, but how was that for you? The visualization that we made, or
it was good, and the laughter really helps.
Yeah.
To laugh at yourself. You told me about a book, Chatter.
Chatter, yeah. Yep.
Ethan, what's his
Ethan
name?
Kroll is his name, spelled with a K. And I ran across him 2 or 3 years ago. And it's funny. I read it. I remember being really intrigued by it. And then for whatever reason, I put it aside. And then in the last 6 months, I came across it. I thought I went to buy it again. And then, of course, when you go on Audible, it says you already own this turkey. So then I said, oh my gosh. And then I remember doing it. And so then I've been working with that. And he talks about, the title of the book is Chatter. And he talks about the things, and because that's really the way anxiety manifests, right? It's not just some abstract thing. It's voices in your head that are making up these stories, like the dust bunnies, and so he has some really great research to support this whole thing of distanced self-talk, where you take your own, like, I can't do this. You take these negative cognitions and you say, well, Grace can't do this, or Grace can do this, and you've done it before, and things like that. And all it is just mechanically replacing the thoughts in your head with something else. But I think it's a little bit more workable than just going with pure affirmations or positive cognition, because to me, that I don't believe a lot of the positive cognitive. I know how to do that. I know how to make affirmations and all that, but I really don't buy it. You know, it's hard to buy into your own affirmations. So, and I'm doing way too much talking there, but I remember the dust bunnies, and there are other people that talk about issues like that, but you just hit a funny bone in me, and we just played with it during the coaching session.
Yeah.
And for those out there, what we did then is I offered Grace, then I said, how about if I just take the content from our coaching session, which I record for everybody anyway, and I transcribe that, and then I sit and play with it and make up a visualization and just make up a narrative. And that's what I was referring to.
And you had me fill out some pages of, answering questions like what triggers you, and you know.
And that's something I stole from EMDR, where we have, well, what happens to us in life is and it can happen at any stage of life, but we form negative cognitions, like I'm not enough, can come out of a simple interaction as a child where you were scolded, or maybe you just had, like me, I just had an interaction with my mom and she was depressed and she kind of withdrew, and it just created a general feeling and a thought in me that I'm not enough. And so that sticks with me, and it shows up all the time. And they certainly show up with people who have issues with fear of flying. So I came up with a list of 80 of those for flying, and that's what Grace was referring to. I gave her a list, and she circled the ones that were relevant. So with that and the content from our coaching session, it helps me make some things that I had to ask her if they were relevant, when we got all done with it. And turns out that some of them seem to work. So anyway, do you have any plans coming up to fly again?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll do a short flight in about a month to Las Vegas. That was the easy one.
Yeah, right,
So short,
right.
you get up to, I don't even know what your cruising altitude is, because you don't really cruise from Burbank, and then all of a sudden you're descending again.
Yeah, they usually they might actually get up to 25 to 30 something in there, but because you're Burbank to Vegas, you're only in the air at cruise altitude for maybe 15 minutes max. So it just doesn't make any sense to go up above 30 and stuff like that. So anyway, and so was the flight itself, what were some of the things? Was there anything about the flight this Saturday itself, other than being with me and being with the group, or maybe that was the deal that you noticed when you were flying that made it helpful to you?
I had a bunch of I had a little packet of emergency things. I had a couple of straws and to breathe through. I mean, one or two. I had some squish balls to, sort of exercise my hand. I had some writing paper so that I could either just write or write with my non-dominant hand, because that does help. That totally distracts.
Yeah.
Because I'm really bad at it.
Right, as we all are, because we just don't do it regularly. Did you have to employ any of those things Saturday, or was
I used the straw.
Oh, okay.
I did breathe through the straw when we felt a few just tiny bumps.
Okay.
But when they turn this seatbelt sign back on, then I know, okay, we're going to have a little bit of light.
And that's a big trigger for people. Just seeing that, hearing that tone, and seeing that come on like that, and it is a trigger. Can you genuinely say that you have more confidence for the flights coming up?
And I do have a longer flight. I'm flying to Hawaii in December, around New Year's. So my husband and I are taking a bigger trip, and yeah.
And were there any surprises on the flight? Positive or negative? No. Just doing it. Yeah. And from the feedback I get in all the other years I've been doing this, just having a group of people is a thing, not just because I was there, but I think even more so, just having other people there. Even though we had a really small group, we had, everybody see, it's not, the focus is less on what other people are thinking about you and just connecting with the people like you, it seems like. So anyway, well, hang with us here, Grace, if you can. I'm gonna ask Tom to come in here unless he's given up on me, because we're gonna press him because he's now part of us. And Tom, are you there? Okay, there he is. Okay,
Yes,
all
I
right.
am.
So I'm gonna kind of blurt out. So you've been on the show before, and we figured what it's been 3-4 years. Has it been that long, or at least 2?
Yeah.
At least
2. Yeah, that's correct. Yes, 2.5, maybe like 2 or something.
Yeah. And tell people, when you're originally from Poland,
Yes,
and you came over here. I don't know how long you've been here, but you flew again, not unlike Grace and not unlike Tanya and everybody else. You flew before without any problems, right? Earlier in your life.
Yes, I'm from Poland. I moved here in 2005, so it's almost born American.
Yeah.
So I do love aviation. I was flying a lot back and forth in US, between Europe and Poland. Sorry, Europe and US. There was one flight going from Frankfurt to LAX. We dropped over to Denver like 15 years ago. That was the CAT, the clearer turbulence.
So it's a bad experience 15 years ago that really
that was really bad. And that took me almost 5 years not flying. I was trying by myself, going back and forth.
Yeah.
I was buying some tickets, going on the plane, walking off the plane back and forth. And I Googled you guys. I spoke with Ron. I took the class in Phoenix. So we boarded the station on the plane. That was kind of tough experience for me. I was not feeling comfortable boarding the plane. All the flashback was going to me. And I knew we were not going to fly. We knew nothing was going to happen. But the feelings were pretty strong. So I made it. Once I did it, I felt very comfortable. Then we booked the flight with Captain Ron, Captain Eric, Flight Attendant Diane, and also firefighter Oliver, Wendy.
Oliver, yeah.
Oliver. Yes, we flew from Phoenix to Santa Ana back and forth. And that was a huge step for me. You guys probably remember, for those who are watching the show, I was really bad. Taking the flight from Phoenix to Santa Ana, I almost walked away. I remember Ron said he will never bet any money on me.
Yeah, and I try to, and I would never try. Well, and you made the flight by driving over to Phoenix, right?
That's correct.
Your car was here, so you had a little bit of a need to get back. So we flew to Orange County, which is your home airport of sorts. It's close to your house there, and then you make that, and then after that, talk about the experiences after that. What happened to you after the flight? I mean, you made it that day, but it wasn't.
After this, I was able to fly with Ron and his team and other group of the people, but I had an issue to fly by myself. I was always walking away from this, but that was one day. I just woke up one day, something clicked in my mind. Hey, let's do it today. So I just decided, hey, let's head to Ontario International Airport. I flew southwest from Ontario to Phoenix back and forth. Yes, that was tough. But once I did it by myself once, then I was able to do it for the second time, third, fourth, and the fifth time. And I started flying back and forth, So I did few short flights to Phoenix a few times, to San Francisco a few times. Then I did one to Miami. So if something happens in Miami, I can always drive back, right?
That was crazy, because I remember you coming to Phoenix and we were talking this. We did some coaching and things like that. And then I remember, all of a sudden you said, "I'm headed to Miami," and I'm like, "Say what?" and it looked like you really were having a breakthrough.
So I did in Miami, and after Miami, I flew to Poland. So there was no issues.
That's right, to visit your folks over in Poland.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So the thing I want people to hear is a couple of things. One, that you were persistent and you didn't give up. And there was a particular date after that when you flew to Phoenix, and if I recall right, tell me about that. When you you intended to fly back, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, that was one of the flights that got delayed or canceled. I don't remember. And the backup plane had some technical issues with flaps. I was like, first of all, I don't feel like flying now. They have some flaps issues. I'm not a pilot, but I know something about aviations. They need a goddamn flights at the flaps to land the plane. They're not gonna land it in the short runway without the flaps. So I'm not taking this. So I called Ron, and he offered me to visit his studio and stay over the night.
So you stayed at my house at the night, and then the next day and I remember you were really distraught because you were like, I don't think I'm cut out to do this. And I tried to share with you, like I do with other people, try not to make that decision today because you won't. And so after that, this is the part which is crazy. So tell everybody what happened after that.
After that, there was one day that I just lost my mind, and I applied to Delta as a flight attendant. And I don't know what happened. Those guys decided to hire me. So I was like, okay, if they want to hire me, I will give it a try.
So I'm going to repeat that. By using your words, you said you lost your mind and thought that you should apply as a flight attendant, right?
I didn't even know why I applied. I just applied for fun. I never intend to be a flight attendant. So I did apply. I went through the very long hiring process. They hired me. I was like, okay, they hired me. Let's do the training. Let's see how it looks. It's going to be a nice life experience. I did the training. Then I graduated. I was like, okay, so I'm in. Let's fly. Why not? Let's give it a try. So first flight.
So you woke up one day and you were a flight attendant. Based on for Delta Airlines, and you had to go to Atlanta for the training, right? And the interviews and all that? Yeah.
Yes, the interviews in person in Atlanta. This is the last step to if you get selected or not. Once you get selected, there is a 6 days training in Atlanta headquarters. So you have to fly to Atlanta for 6 weeks.
Yeah. And then you started flying the line, and you were doing quite well.
Yep.
And then what happened? How long ago was it now? 3 months? Or was it 3 months ago or so?
No, that was a lot. So I have been flying for them for a year and a half. I did almost 600 flights, bumpy, no bumpy, more bumpy, less bumpy. I'm based in Salt Lake. Salt Lake is usually bumpy because of the terrain and the weather of the mountains.
Yeah, in and out of Salt Lake, you got mountainous terrain. So
it's always bumpy. 99% is going to be bumpy flight. I got used to it. I got really used to it. I was enjoying this. I was, if there is bumpy flight, it's the best flight because you don't have to do any service, right?
You can just sit there and enjoy the flight.
Yeah. But then there was the famous flight from Nashville to Atlanta. It's a very short flight, 36 minutes, 38 minutes. But we flew through the very severe, very bad storm. So we hit a very severe turbulences, which we dropped twice, pretty bad. Yeah. People flew on the plane.
Yeah.
And I was fine that day. When this happened during that flight, I always fly as a lead. I took the charge. I was on top with my passengers, with the crew, so nobody got injured. I was fine with this.
And what you shared with me was you were not only fine, but you really rose to the occasion. You were comforting people, including the captain. And tell us what went on with the captain.
So after we landed, we had the briefing or debriefing with captain. We're just trying to make sure he was trying to make sure that we are fine, nobody's injured. He apologized for the experience. Once we explained to him how bad it was that people flew on the plane, which he didn't know that time, it wasn't his fault because some people, they don't listen and they don't need the seatbelts, right?
Yeah. So
he walked away of the plane. He was sitting, leaning by the jet bridge wall, like a Fred, pretty defeated. He didn't like this, what we told him, how it went. I didn't know, so I just left the plane as the last one. That's what I'm supposed to do, just make sure all the doors are disarmed and so on. And I spoke to him what's wrong? He was like, yeah, I apologize for this. I feel so bad. And I was like, Captain, don't feel bad. Any landing, we can walk away from this. It's a good landing. Nobody got injured. nothing really happened. It's not your fault. You did your best. So he kept saying that I could have avoided. He kept apologizing for this. So he was pretty sad. So I don't know, just my first instinct, the feeling was to help this guy. Hey, I'm fine. At that time, I was fine. It was
Yeah.
pretty bad. So I was trying to help this guy, just give him some kudos. Hey, you landed, nothing happened. It wasn't your fault. Don't worry about it. You just keep moving. Keep moving. Just
Yeah.
leave it in the past. So that's what happened that day. Then we did another flight from Atlanta to Charlotte. We are all fine. There was no issues.
And so was that like the next day on the same trip series?
That was the same day. So we had another flight from Atlanta to Charlotte, and we were all fine, no issues.
Was it the same? Just out of curiosity, was it the same captain, or was it a different flight?
Different crew.
Different crew. Okay.
Yeah. So the flight attendants, we are all the same, but there was a different officer and the captain. So the flight crew was different, and no issues. We had all no issues. We landed, nice layover. I got my hamburger, welcome diet, no issues. I was completely fine. I woke up in the morning, I was still fine. But once I went to the lobby and to meet my crew and get to the van, I started getting some anxiety, like, I don't think I want to do this flight today. Yeah. And the closer we're getting to the airport, the anxiety was, so that was a mistake I made, which I told you at the airport on Saturday. I engaged with this. I let this fear get on me, and I was trying to fight it. If you fight it, you're not gonna win. You just cannot engage with this. Just let it go. So I was fighting this. I was thinking about it. I was not scared of the flight. I was scared of the drop. That was almost the same area going back to Atlanta. So I didn't do the flight. So I ended up deadheading, which means flying back as a paid passengers back to Atlanta, from Atlanta back to.
So for the people out there who aren't familiar, so you left your trip at that point, and you just went home, and then you didn't fly for a period.
It will be 2 months and a half.
2.5 months. So it had that big a feeling, or that big of an effect on you. And I'm going to see Eric sitting there. If you got anything to jump in on here, let me know. But
I was communicating with him through Diane's Facebook, and we were texting and talking back and forth. So I was up to speed this far, and I sure wanted to hear about Grace, but I wanted to hear where you were at the present stage of the game. I'm reasonably well caught up, and that's so heartbreaking for me that you fought that hard and to the point of getting the job and flying like that and suffered that setback. That's
And for the people that can probably identify with that, that's how deep seated those patterns are in your brain. So you don't ever erase them. You just revisit them like that. And while you were extremely courageous and had some successes, it's not surprising to me that you relive that. And then again, what I remember, because I was also involved with talking with you, is when you go back and it all calms down afterwards, it's the what ifs, right? It's like, oh my gosh. And that's kind of what the captain was going through, I think. Even though he probably didn't suffer from his own personal fear, he had the what ifs, what could I have done? What would have been like if I had taken another vector or told the air traffic control. I mean, I don't even know what he was confronted with. But anyway, so to wind this up, so then you did go back to work, and then what happened?
So after this incident, I had like a week off because I went to Arizona for some testings. I was trying to get back to work. So before I'm going to work, I want to do any like a small flight as a passenger, like a short flights.
Yeah.
The first flights, I couldn't do it. I was just walking away from the plane and walking away from the airport, not even going to the airport because that's what points doing. Then I did 1-2 flights. Then I was back again. Then I tried a few flights. Then I was back again. I was going up and down, up and up and down. But recently, I finally changed my approach because the entire year and a half, my approach was bad. I was always hoping for an easy, smooth flight. And I think when you're working as a flight attendant, you're so occupied, you're always busy. You don't even think about it as a passenger because you're always busy. So I was thinking about this, my approach a lot, and I changed the approach like, hey, don't hope for any smooth flight. If you're working in this, if you're a passenger, maybe it's a different story. But if you're working as a crew member, you're doing so many flights, something's gonna happen sooner or later. You just have to accept it. And I was looking at the flight I did 2 months ago. It was super bad, but did something happen to me? I didn't get injured. Nobody died. We didn't crash. Nothing really happened. It's just in my head. So I prove it to myself, it's always in your head. So I changed the approach. Hey, it might happen. If this happens, it's fine. Nothing. It's just a bumpy ride. That's all about it. So I took some flights as a passenger. I don't even know how many, maybe like a 10 or 15. I was always flying from Santa Ana to Salt Lake. The reason because there are always bumpy flights. So I want to go into the bumpy flight. So I'm fine right now. I might have a small anxiety that this might happen again, but I can take this flight. So yeah, I'm gonna work next flight this Thursday. I have a 4-leg flight from LAX to Las Vegas 4 times back and forth.
Well, the things that are worth noting is one, you let the company pay for your continued experience, right? Because now you can fly as an employee, and so it's a little bit cheaper. But the principles are the same. You didn't give up.
Yeah.
You came to these insights that, okay, it is something, and when you have successes like you did, now you have something that's weighing more on the scale. Whereas before it's like, oh, I gotta put all my energy into trying to pick the smooth flights or hoping for smooth flights. And then eventually you just came to the agreement or the understanding that, hey, it is what it is and it's survivable. And it's just how much do I want to torment myself, even though it's not a voluntary thing like that.
Yeah, it's all mental. So when I was going to the airport with an approach, I'm not gonna do this flight. I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna walk away from the plane. If you keep talking the same tape back and forth, then guess what? You're just gonna manifest it. You will not do it.
Yeah.
So I know it's hard to think the opposite way, but if you think the opposite way, you're gonna manifest it. So I know it's hard, but not. So your brain, you know it, Ron. Your brain doesn't know what is fake, what is real. Whatever you think, whatever you say, the brain's gonna accept it. So I know it's for those people who listen right now. I know it's hard to say it, but say it the line. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling relaxed. I'm completely fine. I'm under control. And you will manifest it. So there was some flights from Santa Ana to Salt Lake. They got pretty bumpy, like moderate turbulence, because this happens recently. I didn't like it. So I was talking to myself, hey, you are fine. Nothing's going to happen. It's completely fine. It changed my mood right away.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty. You realize that you can transform your attitude and your sense of well-being in a heartbeat once you do it.
Yeah.
But to your credit, you didn't give up. You hung in there. And I remember we were going to do this interview some time ago, and then you called me back and said, we better put this on hold a little bit. I'm having some second thoughts. So I want to commend you, and I know that Eric feels pretty much the same way. Yeah.
Nobody's fought harder than you, Tom.
Ah, come on.
Nobody. And
No.
if you're not resigned, you did not resign, so you're still employed there at Delta, is that right?
Yes, I have my wings. Someone here.
There's Grace.
Let me see him. Let me see.
He's still here. Where's the camera?
All right. So you're still out there working.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Oh man, that just makes my night.
Yeah, it really is. And Grace, I know Grace is inspired by it as well. And that's why I wanted you to come on, because it is inspired. And there are people that have similar experience or even worse experiences. But the thing that I hope people will take away from tonight is how you had some unique opportunities to stay flying, but that's what everybody needs to do. And it makes it more difficult if you don't have the opportunity to fly as much. And so that's why Grace's experience is different from yours. But if you just, oh my gosh, if you guys can just hang in there like you did, it's just awesome to do that. So let me do, Grace, hang in there for 1 second. I want to say a proper goodbye to you and get your closing thoughts here. I want to just share the last remaining slides here that I had. I want to remind everybody that we do have the next edition of our monthly group coaching webinars is coming up on November 21st. at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. And then for any of you, especially on the East Coast, that you don't want to stay up that late, I'm reproducing doing an encore version of the webinar on the following Saturday. So November 21st is a Thursday evening. November 23rd is a Saturday morning. And I'm going to keep doing that because I am getting more people who can do it live. I think it's a much better experience if you can join us live and participate. Grace has been on in the webinars, I remember as well. And we do have coming up on the 9th of November, we do have another Clear for Takeoff 301, the Phoenix edition, where we will go from Phoenix, Sky Harbor Airport to Burbank, and then we'll turn around and come back later in the day. So if you are interested in that, take a look at the link. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to let us know. So Grace, I'll bring you back in again. And any final thoughts about, inspiration for people out there?
I think don't give up.
Yeah.
My first class with Capt Ron was in 2015. So it's a process. And well spoken. And again, inspiration, because like Tom, even though Tom was a little bit shorter, you just gotta not give up. And the fact that you don't have the occasion to fly as often makes it harder, because you have that relapse or that time in between, So I just wish both of you the best. And Tom, again, thanks for coming on and sharing all that.
Thank you.
I'll ask Dieter any closing remarks or any questions.
Stephanie had a question, actually, that fits really, really well, because maybe in your own way, each of you can maybe answer that question. Stefan is asking, how do you sit with your anxiety? And I would just love to hear the quick feedback, because for both of you, it's a journey, right? And the journey is up and down. So how do you sit with your anxiety, where you are at today?
Well, and let me add a little amendment to that, Grace. I'll ask you first. What was the toughest time as from 2015 to flying on Saturday? What were the times were there times when you elected not to try, or just give it a rest or put in there? And what was it that, maybe that's a place to give Stephanie some more insight. What were the blocks that came up? What kept you from going forward, and what got you back into the game?
Yeah, there were some flights that got canceled.
Okay.
And I had learned to always buy the fare that was refundable, if such a thing existed.
Absolutely. It does exist. Yeah. And they make it expensive now, you know. When I first started flying back in the 60s, holy cow, it didn't matter. And that's why the airlines got to the way they did. They were the cheapest fare, and you could cancel with no penalty. You get the money back. Not anymore, man. Now you got to pay big bucks to get that money back. So
yeah, so I have to be pretty motivated, like having to go to Chicago for my mother-in-law's burial.
Yeah.
I mean, that was important.
And the short version of that to me is you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. and the event just won't let you not fly.
And so to answer her question, if I'm feeling anxious, I listen to the harmonizer or one of the other audios and just kind of immerse myself. Do some journaling, writing with your opposite hand. If you're in the moment on the plane, or turbulence starts or something, you can breathe through a straw. You can write with your opposite hand. Listen.
And I think in turn, that gives you confidence now when you're not flying, or you're thinking about a flight coming up, that you don't have the terror that you did before, like, oh my God, if that happens, what will I do? And I see Tom shaking his head, and and Tom, likewise, both of you tonight actually shared the experience of doing something different. And that's the hardest thing, because what I've seen over the years in my own struggles, it's like you want to curl up in a ball and just disappear and just let it go. I know, And you and for sure, Tom, I heard you saying, you actually have to think differently. And in the times when you're not ready to think all the insights that you have, you do things, you breathe through a straw. You do anything you can to put your mind elsewhere. So, Tom, any additional words that you want to share?
Yeah, for those who are listening and trying to beat this fear, the most important is to do not give up. You cannot give up.
Yeah.
You have to believe in yourself and try exposing yourself to these 4 events. Go to the airport today. Tomorrow, go again. The next day, just pass the TSA, the checkpoints, and go back home. That's fine. Maybe the next day, board the plane. Yes, you're gonna walk away from the plane, but make another step. And each time you will not take the flight or you walk away from this flight, some people say, I lost today or I failed. No, you did not fail. You did another step forward. Never say that you failed. Never use any negative words, because that will not help you. Just do not give up. Be persistent. Believe in yourself. And keep doing small baby steps. That all counts.
And you two in particular, because I know more about you, you two have exemplified, have personified what it means to be stick-to-itiveness. So congratulations. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Grace, and what a great, we've been graced tonight. So thanks. So thanks. And
Good
thanks,
job, both
Eric.
of you guys.
And Diane had to leave, but thanks Eric and Dieter as well for showing up. And we'll be back again next week until we get it right. We'll kind of keep doing this. So thanks everybody, and I hope both of you have just the best weeks. And we'll see you. Thanks again for sharing your stories. It's been another edition of Fearless Flight Live. We'll see you again next week, everybody. Bye bye.
Hey, Dieter and Ron, hang on for a second. After